Ever find yourself wondering if there's more to consciousness than, well, just our brains?
I see where you're going with this.
Right. Like, what makes you could be tied to hidden dimensions? We're diving into that today with physicist Michael Pravica's theory.
That's going to be fascinating. Dimensions beyond our perception always get the gears turning.
Totally. We're looking at this article, Scientists Links Human Consciousness to a Higher Dimension Beyond Our Perception. And just so everyone knows, we're talking about Michael Pravica. He's a professor of physics at the University of Nevada.
Okay, so not just someone with a wild theory and no credentials.
Exactly. He's got the background. And basically, he suggests that our consciousness might not be completely a product of just our brains.
Hold on, so he's saying there's something more. Like, where does this something more even exist?
He's thinking it originates in dimensions we don't normally perceive. And get this, he even says things like, when we're being creative, scientific discoveries, even dreaming, those could be moments we're tapping into these hidden realms.
Okay, now we're getting to the really interesting stuff. This builds on the whole idea of hyperdimensionality, right? That there are more dimensions than just the 4 we experience every day.
So beyond height, width, length, and time, there's more. That's a lot to grasp.
It is, but think of it like this. Imagine you're an ant in your living room. The ant's reality is basically 2-dimensional, right?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
They can't comprehend up because their perception's limited to that flat surface. Pravica is saying we might be similar, stuck in our 4 dimensions, missing a whole bigger picture.
So, like, we're the ants, completely oblivious to this vastness around us. Kind of a humbling thought.
He actually uses an analogy of 2D beings encountering a 3D sphere. All they'd see are slices, not the full thing.
Makes sense. But is there any evidence to back this up? How can we even know these dimensions exist, let alone affect us?
That's the tricky part. Our technology, even something as advanced as the Large Hadron Collider.
I have to admit I'm a little fuzzy on how that even works.
Basically, they smash particles together super fast, hoping to find some that act in ways suggesting there are extra dimensions. Like, if a particle disappears for a split second, it might be slipping into another dimension.
Oh, so we're trying to find proof, but we don't even know what that proof would look like for sure.
Exactly. We haven't found anything conclusive yet. And naturally, not everyone's on board with Pravica's theory.
Yeah, that's to be expected. So, who's a dissenting voice in all this?
Well, there's Stephen Haller. He's an associate professor of physics over at Fordham University. He's a bit more skeptical, thinks just because we can do math with higher dimensions doesn't mean they're real.
So, like, I can write a story about a dragon. Doesn't make them breathe fire in reality.
Exactly. He argues we need more than just equations. We need tangible evidence.
Which, for now, we don't have. That's got to be frustrating for Pravica.
Well, despite the lack of definitive proof, he seems optimistic. He even thinks that within our lifetimes, we might have the technology to prove his theory.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting for me. The article mentions Pravica is an Orthodox Christian, and he sees his theory as a kind of bridge between science and religion. He even suggests that figures like, well, Jesus ascending to heaven could be beings navigating between these dimensions. Not that we're booking tickets to the afterlife, but it's a thought-provoking idea.
Definitely makes you think about those kinds of stories in a whole new light. But we do have to be careful here, right? I mean, this is where things get a little more, shall we say, speculative?
Right, got to keep our skeptical hats on. Still, makes you wonder, though. If our consciousness can tap into these hidden dimensions, what does that mean for creativity? Or inspiration? Even for spirituality?
That's where it gets really exciting, honestly. Pravica actually suggests that art, the creative process, could be a prime example of this connection.
Artists being naturally tuned in.
Yeah, like they're more sensitive to those dimensions, able to pull ideas and inspiration from somewhere beyond our normal perception.
So that whole flash of genius thing isn't so mysterious after all, just a peek into another dimension.
Exactly. And what about scientific breakthroughs, those aha moments? Maybe those are glimpses into those higher realms too.
Whoa, that's a lot to process. If Pravica is onto something here, the implications are huge for everything.
Absolutely. But even if we never actually see these dimensions ourselves, even just thinking about them changes how we see things.
Reminds me of that Carl Sagan quote, somewhere something incredible is waiting to be known. It seems very fitting here.
Couldn't agree more. That sense of wonder, of keeping an open mind, that's what drives discovery.
It's like we're standing at the edge of the unknown and we can kind of peek over, you know?
Right, like our brains can barely even handle the concept.
Exactly. This whole idea of hidden dimensions, consciousness, really makes you rethink everything.
It definitely challenges our everyday understanding of, well, reality, doesn't it?
For sure. And who knows, maybe someday, with enough research, we'll have the tools to actually prove all of this.
Now that would be something. Imagine the discoveries waiting for us then.
I can't even fathom it. But until then, we're kind of left with more questions than answers. What do you think out there, listening? Does this idea, this possibility of consciousness existing beyond our normal dimensions, does it resonate with you at all?
It's a big question to consider for sure.
It really is. It forces us to push past the limits of what we think we know and embrace that vast unknown.
And that's what's so great about science, right? It's not about having all the answers, but the constant search, the exploration.
Pravica's theory, it's a perfect example. Even if he's not right, even if we never prove these dimensions exist, he's making us think differently, to consider the seemingly impossible.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe those impossible ideas are the key to unlocking, well, everything.
That's a great point to end on. So if our consciousness really can access higher dimensions, what does that mean for how we see reality, creativity, our very existence? That's something I'm going to be thinking about for a while, and I hope you all will too.